Hi, my name is Greg, and I'm here to talk to you about some of the basic training principles. So no one has a kind of catch-all solution when it comes to training. Uh, Different individuals react differently to different things. So you can't have one kind of fit-all training method that works for everyone. But there are kind of 8 guidelines that should help you when you're starting to train. So the first principle I'm going to kind of talk about is the specific adaptation to imposed demands. It's also sometimes called the SAID principle. So basically, what it's talking about is each person has their own kind of goals in their fitness, and you need to make sure you're setting the goals to make sure the program reflects what that person wants out of it. So for example, some volleyball players, we need to be able to jump very well. So a program that this guy is on probably wouldn't work very well, where he's gaining a lot of strength in the upper body, but the lower body, as you can see, is pretty small. So to make sure your program works and works for your client, you need to make sure you match kind of the motor balance functions, as well as specific systems of the body, so the nervous system or whatever cardiovascular system. Make sure all those align correctly with the kind of goal for the client. So the second principle I'm going to talk about is overload. It's the idea of kind of putting your client's body into more workload than it's accustomed to, kind of putting it into that high pressure situation. Obviously, you got to be careful in these scenarios. You don't want to overload them too much where they reach a point of injury, but you need to make sure you're challenging them to a certain level to see kind of that improvement. Lots of the time when you're starting and in the overload phase, performance will actually drop, as you see, but then after kind of the rest and adaptation, it will rise to a new higher level, which is what you want your client reaching, those kind of new peaks of physical fitness or whatever the goal is. Looking at it, with overload, there's kind of 2 key parts to it. The training volume, so kind of the frequency, how often your client can work out, kind of how often they can see you, kind of how long they can see you for, as well as the training intensity, so how hard they're working in that, what kind of quality are those minutes. Can they sustain a hard workout for an hour, or is it closer to half an hour? These are kind of key things when you're planning in the overload phase. Next up is kind of the rest, recovery, and adaptation phase. So the body kind of adapts to the physical training during periods of rest. So rest periods are super important to allow kind of the changes you've been working on to take hold in your body. If you're constantly overloaded, then your body starts to break down rather than actually become stronger. So you want to make sure that you have those periods of rest in between kind of overload cycles. And the recovery part as well is key, just to make sure you're mentally as well recovering. If you're always going hard all the time, then it takes longer for you to actually recover. Alright, so next up is progression. So kind of after your body's adapted, that's when you can kind of see the results of that adaptation, so that progress forward and that sort of thing. However, as you can see, with progression, there's usually increases followed by some small incremental decreases. But over the long run, you can see the performance kind of rises. This idea is kind of the same as that rest recovery. If you're constantly going up, you're just going to be asking for injuries and kind of long-term setbacks. You need to make sure that you give your body time to recover so that you can see the progress kind of being made over long periods of time. It kind of relates to the idea in training, working out once, you're not going to see the results you want right away. If you want long-term kind of increased health or increased strength or whatever your fitness goal is, you need to make sure you allot appropriate amount of time to have the progression happen. Next kind of phase I'm going to talk about is kind of no one's real favorite. It's the retrogression. kind of takes place when you're after the overload maintenance phase. Kind of you end up taking that step back, or you end up plateauing, or not seeing the progress you were making earlier. It can be very frustrating time. I know for me personally, hitting plateaus always kind of made me less motivated to go to the gym and that sort of thing. However, kind of learning that it's part of everyone's kind of workout phases and that sort of thing helps. And kind of learning some keys to get over the plateaus, such as adding some variety to your workouts, trying new exercises, maybe taking a new class, something like that, just to change up what's happening to your body. Body does a very good job of adjusting to changes and that sort of thing. So if you don't make changes in your workout regularly, you'll find you'll plateau and you won't be making the progression that you want, and it'll be almost like your fitness goals are stalled. So adding that variety and making sure that you have planned kind of retrogression phases in your training can help limit the frustration and help you reach your goals. So the next phase is kind of the maintenance phase. So after you kind of reach your fitness goal, then you have to be able to maintain that as well. Just like most things in life, anything to excess ends up hurting you more than helping you. So maybe a goal of yours is to get stronger, and you've hit that peak where you feel stronger, you're looking bigger, that sort of thing. If you keep on heading that way though, maybe you start to lose some flexibility, or maybe you can't do some of the things you want to do because you're just too physically big to do it. So you don't want to keep progressing maybe in that area. Maybe you want to switch to another area of progression, or you want to change up your goals. As you progress through life, your fitness goals change, just like maybe your priorities in life. That being said, there's times where you want to just be able to maintain your size, or you want to be able to maintain your flexibility or your speed or whatever it is. So you need to be able to figure out kind of the reps and kind of the time and the intensity required to maintain it. This can kind of be tricky, as you may see some slight decrease or slight increase in these periods as well. But finding that maintenance stage can help you kind of realize your goal for longer periods of time, rather than reaching your goal and automatically kind of losing the new ability you gain by going on to something else. So the next phase is kind of individualization. So kind of the idea that people are affected by different factors in their life. So a program that could be overload program for one person, could be maintenance for another, and could be a regression phase for a third person. So you have to take into account kind of everyone's different body types, kind of their age, their gender, sleep habits, health, substance abuse. All these things can factor into an individual's receptibility to training, and should factor into kind of what you're having them do and kind of what's going to help them meet their goals the best. As a trainer, you want to promote a healthy lifestyle, kind of not just when you're with the client, but helping them maybe with some nutrition tips you might have picked up, or helping them kind of establish a good sleep pattern, or helping them kind of see what substance abuse problem could cost them. These are different ways that you can help an individual train better, not just kind of throwing a blank program or a blanket program at a person and expecting it to have good results for everyone. So another phase, and kind of the last one, the eighth one, for in training is the warm up and cool down. So kind of preparing the muscles for activity that's going to be happening as your warm up. So once again, kind of individualizing the warm up is kind of key. So for example, a volleyball player who's doing a lot of jumping and kind of that lateral movement, that sort of thing, any kind of squats or lunges, things like that, help prepare the body for the activity coming. It also raises the body temperature to an appropriate level so that you can perform during the event, and you don't kind of need that time to get your body temperature up, costing you points early in a match or in whatever activity you're doing. Cool down is also a super important part, making sure that you're lowering your body temperature and kind of stretching and making sure that your body is prepared for the next day. If you don't kind of cool down and look after your body, then you can kind of be tight or develop some nagging injuries kind of the next day, which can impair your performance later on. So to help everyone kind of remember the 8 guidelines for training, I came up with a mnemonic device to kind of help you guys remember. There's kind of split into 2. So the first one is SOAR with a P, and the second one is worm with an I instead of an O. So the first one, SOAR, is your specific training plan, your overload in your training plan, and then your rest and progression in your training plan to help you kind of remember the first 4. The second one, worm with an I, to help you remember. The first one is your warm-up, followed by your individualization, then your retrogression, and finally your maintenance.
All right, so to kind of help show how pneumatic devices work, I got Trent from our class to help me out. So Trent, what does SOAR worm stand for?
Hey guys, how's it going? So SOAR stands for specific, overload, rest, and progression. And the worm stands for warm-up, individualization, retrogression, and maintenance. All thanks to the SOAR worm mnemic device.
Thanks, Trent.